Strength of materials, which is commonly known as mechanics of material, is focused on analyzing stresses and deflections in materials under load. Knowledge of stresses and deflections allow us for the safe design of structures that are capable of supporting their intended loads. In this section, we will deal with certain important questions pertaining to strength of material or mechanics of material. These questions would be like, what is a UDL or a uniformly distributed load? What is bulk modulus of elasticity? Distinguish between creep and fatigue. Define buckling factor. What is the slenderness ratio? And many more. Define a uniformly distributed load. A uniformly distributed load, or popularly known as UDL, is a load that is distributed or spread across the whole region of an element, such as a beam or a slab. In other words, the magnitude of the load remains uniform throughout the whole element. The answer to this question would be, a uniformly distributed load is a load which is spread over a region of the beam. Here, the magnitude of the load remains similar throughout the element, that is, each unit length is loaded to the same extent. What is bulk modulus of elasticity? Bulk modulus is defined as the proportion of volumetric stress related to the volumetric strain of a specified material, while the material deformation is within the elastic limit. The bulk modulus of elasticity is one of the measures of the mechanical properties of solids. To put in more simple words, the bulk modulus is nothing but a numerical constant that is used to measure and describe the elastic properties of a solid or fluid when pressure is applied on all the surfaces. The answer to this question would be, it represents the compressibility of a fluid. It is the ratio of the change in unit pressure to the corresponding volume change per unit of volume. Distinguish between creep and fatigue. Creep and fatigue are the phenomenon that lead to deformation and eventually failure of the components. Fatigue is a situation in which component is subjected to cyclic loading. Creep is a situation in which a component experiences deformation under constant load with time. The answer to this question would be, creep is low and progressive deformation of a material with time under a constant stress at high temperature applications. Fatigue is the reduced tendency of material to resist applied stress under repeated or fluctuating loading conditions. Define buckling factor. The buckling load factor, or BLF, is an indicator of the factor of safety against buckling, or the ratio of the buckling loads to the currently applied loads. The answer to this particular question would be, it is the ratio of the equivalent length of column to the minimum radius of gyration. What is lateral strain? In continuum mechanics, lateral strain, also known as transverse strain, is defined as the ratio of the change in diameter of a circular bar of a material to its diameter due to deformation in the longitudinal direction. It is a dimensionless quantity, as it is a ratio between two quantities of the same dimension. The answer to this particular question would be, when a body is subjected to longitudinal stress, it extends or gets compressed in the direction of the stress applied. But it will also get thicker or thinner in the transverse direction. The ratio of this change in the length or breadth for the rectangular shape and diameter for the circular bar, which is in the direction perpendicular to the force, and the original length, is what we call a lateral strain. Is it the stress that produces strain, or vice versa? Strain is the response of a system to an applied stress. When a material is loaded with a force, it produces a stress, which then causes a material to deform. Engineering strain is defined as the amount of deformation in the direction of the applied force divided by the initial length of the material. What is the difference between proof resilience and modulus of resilience? Strain energy stored in a specimen when strained within elastic limit is known as resilience. The maximum energy stored at elastic limit is known as proof resilience. The proof resilience per unit volume, or strain energy per unit volume, is what we call modulus of resilience. The answer to this question would be, proof resilience is the maximum strain energy that can be stored in a material without permanent deformation, whereas modulus of resilience is the maximum strain energy stored in a material per unit volume. What is hoop stress and longitudinal stress in a thin-walled cylinder? The hoop stress is the force exerted perpendicular to the axis and the radius of the object in both the direction on every particle in the cylinder wall, whereas longitudinal stress is defined as the stress produced when a pipe is subjected to internal pressure. The direction of the longitudinal stress in a pipe is parallel to the longitudinal axis of its central line axis, which means that the stress acts in the direction of the pipe's length. The answer to this question would be, when a thin cylinder is subjected to internal pressure, longitudinal and hoop stress are observed in the cylinder. Hoop stress is the circumferential normal stress developed at the tangential direction. Hoop stress acts towards the circumference perpendicular to the length of the cylinder, whereas longitudinal stress acts along the length of the cylinder. The hoop stress is given by sigma suffix h is equal to Pd by 2t, and longitudinal stress is given by sigma suffix L is equal to Pd by 4t. Here P is the internal pressure, d being the internal diameter, and t is the thickness. What is the value of modulus of elasticity of steel? Modulus of elasticity, also known as elastic modulus or simply modulus, is the measurement of a material's elasticity. The answer to this question would be, up to elastic limit, strain is proportional to stress. The ratio of stress to strain is known as modulus of elasticity or Young's modulus of elasticity. The modulus of elasticity for steel is measured as 210 gigapascal. What is slenderness ratio? The slenderness ratio, or simply slenderness, is an aspect ratio, the quotient between the height and the width of a building. In structural engineering, slenderness is a measure probability of a column to buckle. The answer to this question would be, the ratio of the length of a column to the least radius of gyration is known as the slenderness ratio. What is bending moment? In solid mechanics, a bending moment is the reaction induced in a structural element when an external force or moment is applied to the element, causing the element to bend. The most common or simplest structure element subjected to bending moment is the beam. The answer to this question would be, most of the time, the bending moment is associated with the beams. Beams carry load perpendicular to its axis and also withstand bending moment. When some external forces or moments are applied on a structural element, it can bend. The reaction to these applied forces and moments are known as the bending moment. What is stress concentration? A stress concentration is a location in an object where the stress is significantly greater than the surrounding region. Stress concentrations occur when there are irregularities in the geometry or material of a structure component that causes an interruption to the flow of stress. Stress concentration may also occur from accidental damages such as nicks and scratches. The answer to this question would be, stress concentration is a localized stress. When a stress is distributed over a material, it remains strong, but concentrated stress can cause serious damage to a material. Stress concentration is also known as stress erasers or stress risers. What are the differences between beam and columns? Commonly, a horizontal member of a structure that resists transverse load is called a beam. Commonly, a vertical member of a structure that resist axial or eccentric loading is called a column. The beam is carried load perpendicular to the longitudinal axis. Column basically carries load or resists compression load. The answer to this question would be beams are horizontal structure elements which experiences load perpendicular to its axis and also withstand bending moments. Columns are the vertical members which have to withstand compressive loads which can be parallel to their axis. What is section modulus? Section modulus is a geometric property for a given cross-section used in the design of beams or flexural members. The answer to this question would be the ratio of the moment of inertia of a cross-sectional area to the distance of the highest point of the fiber from the neutral axis is known as the section modulus. Mathematically, section modulus is given by Z = I/C.